Hey guys, welcome to Blue Cherry Art Studio. My name is Carrie. I'm super excited you guys are here to share this journey with me. Just for people that are coming onto my page, I wanted to do a quick introduction. So I am a resin artist. My specialty is definitely ocean art, but I love to do different types of fluid art. As you can see here, we will go over different colors, substrates. We'll definitely go over pigments and what resins work best with what creations you're trying to get, such as cells or just more of that fluid action. We'll go over definitely the tips and tricks of resin art, what tools to use, and just learn from each other. So this is parts of the journey I'd love for you to be involved in, and I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for supporting me on Instagram. I am so excited to also share my actual journey with you on how to create these items. Hey guys, so we are going to pour on this 13-inch round bamboo. So I already put it on cups, so as you can see, these are just little Dixie cups I prep it on. And then what we're gonna wanna do first, once it's on the cups, we wanna make sure that it's level. So a lot of times what happens is your table's not level or the actual board itself isn't level. Now this is a big one. I know you guys don't have to use this huge one, but I do so many projects with bigger boards. I need something that I can see. And it looks like it's level, but at the same time, if it's not, here's the little trick. So you're gonna just use a popsicle stick, just a regular one. You're just gonna stick it under the part that wasn't quite level enough for you, because what happens is if it's not level, the wave is gonna roll forward. And you'll see what I mean. The first one might just do that because of the substrate it's on, because bamboo has all these little ridges in it, and it doesn't allow it to flow freely, I guess you would say. But we'll get started. So it looks like it's pretty level. Let me check it one more time because I moved it. And I don't know if you guys can see that, but it looks pretty good to me. Okay, so let's stir up some pigments. So these are the tools that we're actually going to be using today. So in a lot of my pours, I use the eye candy pigments, which are amazing. You guys probably know that, follow me on Instagram. I use the Okinawa blue, which is this one here. And then I use the Busan blue, but today this is the Persian purple, which it looks like it's blue, right? So it's, the tint is a little bit more brighter and you have that shimmer to it. So every single layer I do, I will definitely get into how I do it, but I always use these two colors, whether it's Busan blue or the Persian purple, and the Okinawa blue for the first layer. So I have to be very clear. These are my first layer go-tos. Depending on what type of color transition I want to do, I might do the second layer with a tad bit of both in my alcohol inks, but we'll get into that tomorrow. So the things that you're going to need are definitely going to be your Dixie cups. So depending on how many pours you're going to do, just for this purpose, I'm going to use a smaller one. So that way you can really see how much pigment you need just per layer, which makes sense. And then you'll need your popsicle sticks, obviously, to stir in your pigments. And I'm going to show you how to do that as well. So the heat gun that I use, now this is a new one, so I'm just going to show you just for this video, but you will see me using my old one, which is funny. And it's called Seek One. I hope you guys can see that, but I'll leave a link in the description as well. So that's what I use. And what's really cool is you have different nozzles. So each nozzle does a different effect. This is more of your frothy waves that you want to stay closer to your shoreline. I don't use this very often, but we can definitely experiment with it. So that's one nozzle. This is the nozzle I use in every single pour. And the reason I use this is because the air flows totally different. I like it to push all the way to the edge of the board, which you'll see where I like it to flow over. And then this one is just more if you just want to push around, your pigments just a tad bit. I don't use this for ocean pours, but this is great for if you're using like high pigmented colors like metallics, or if you're using any type of artistry besides ocean. For me, this is just what I don't prefer, but I do use it for other projects. but we'll get into that later too. There's tons of information I'm going to share with you guys throughout this journey. So I'm super excited you've decided to join and learn a little bit about how this process goes. So let's get into it. The resin I'm using today, and I've used quite a bit of it, so I apologize. And I will say it's very thick, so you have to be kind of cautious when you're stirring it. You need to use some elbow grease, so on and so forth. So we're gonna use this actual mixing cup. This is a big one, but you can always reuse it, and I'll show you how to do that too. So I'm probably gonna use for this first layer just 4 ounces. So 1 to 1 means you pour 1 part A in, which is going to be 4 ounces, and then part B, so really total of 8 if you think about it. But I will show you in a second. And then of course we always have to start with safety, so I will link this in the description as well. Of course for this video I won't be wearing it, but please do so, because the fumes in the long run will really damage your breathing, so I do suggest that. Oh, so we didn't get into this one. So just resin, titanium white, the white I use almost in every single pour. I've also used mermaid trash, which is amazing as well. It's like I said, it's different effects, but her product's really amazing. I've actually used it a few times in my posts, and I tagged her in it. So these are hard to get, but I can also leave a link where to buy these. So Just Resin is an actual overseas brand, but there is an artist here on YouTube, and they are called artisttilldeath.com or studios. sorry Jeff, sorry Erica, I screwed that up, but they are amazing. They are actually the pioneers of resin art to me. I started watching them about 3 years ago. I would watch their lives, and I really got obsessed with resin art because of them. So big shout out to them, love them to death. If you see here, this is parchment paper, so a lot of times you can lay it down here as a base and just clean up. And I got mine at Costco, but you can get these on Amazon, anywhere pretty much. And I can also leave a link in the description below. So what you see here is just, this is from the dollar store. So it's just a plain little tablecloth, but it's plastic. So what happens when the drips start to fall here, you can easily peel it off and clean up from there. All right, so let's get started. I'm gonna mix some of the pigments up, and I wanna hear kind of your comments in the description below. So make sure you let me know, what your thoughts are, what questions are, and so on and so forth. And I wanna get your feedback, because I think that's super important. Just, starting out, if you want to know where to get certain things and someone else can answer it, just answer it in the comments. That's what it's there for. Okay, so I just use a tad bit. Again, this is for just 1 layer, so obviously I'm not going to use that much, but I'd say that's about a nickel size. So I put it in first before I start any of my artwork. And the reason why I do that, because I like to be prepared. I don't want to scramble all over the place and can't remember where I put this or where I put that. But again, these are mica pigments, so you have to also, once you wear your mask, a lot of times if you pour this in first and you pour the resin over it, what happens, it sinks to the bottom, which is a good thing, because you don't want it to splash up in your face, because you don't want to inhale these chemicals either. So okay, so that was the Okinawa blue, and now we're going to go to the Persian purple. And let me show you. That's what it looks like. Super pretty, and it's really shimmery. I love the way, it kind of gives you that base color and that peekaboo as well through your next layers. So again, about a dime size. Just put it in there. Just be careful, because they can tip over once you put them down. All right, so the white, I don't really put that in first, just because it's a paste. Consistency is pretty thick, and what I will do, take my popsicle stick. I like to mix it first, and the reason why is because the oils will just kind of sit at the top, and a lot of times artists are like, oh my gosh, it looks so muddy, or it's not mixing right. Well, it's because you might not have mixed it properly before you started to put it into your resin, and that's something, when we're in a hurry or don't think about what we're doing, it's important to kind of be prepared and think it through. It's funny because I literally, I'll stand in my art room for maybe 30 minutes just staring at my stuff before I start, because I want to know, you know, the maneuver I'm going, if I'm going left to right, or before my resin starts to tack up, I want to make sure I have enough to go around the tables. I'll show you my art room next time. It's kind of messy. I've been pushing out a lot of product lately. So anyway, so I think that's good. If you can see, it's just nice and gooey, but it's not thick where it's clumpy. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's get the resin mixed. And again, we're gonna just use this by Total Boat. They're amazing because they will send you these for free. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys also, before you start, you know, have some baby wipes or paper towels next to you. And I always have alcohol, which you can say, look at this. Look how, ugh. Anyway, and this is because if you get spillage, or say you spill some pigment on your substrate and you're like, oh crap, what do I do now? Well, just get some alcohol and wipe it off. And I like to kind of clean this off anyway before I start, just so it's a fresh, kind of dust-free, you know, you guys know what I mean, dust-free for your board. Okay, but I will say be careful with alcohol because you're going to be using your heat gun, and then this is the actual torch that I use. I will leave this in the description box as well. So this is what mine looks like. It's bad, you guys, I know. I like to saran wrap it. Unfortunately, I didn't do that with this particular torch, but that's okay. Okay, so let's mix the resin. So I actually switched this up, and the reason I did that was because you're not going to be able to see how much resin I'm putting in the actual other cup I was using. So again, we're just going to do 4 ounces of part A and then 4 ounces of part B. So that's an equal to 8 ounces. So that way you can see it. So normally I would do part B first. And the reason why I do part B is because it is thicker than the actual resin. So part B is the partner, if you guys didn't know. So I'm just going to turn this around so I can actually see it. And we're gonna pour right about there. Looks good. Okay, and then we're gonna do part A. And you know, again, make sure you're wearing your mask even when you're just pouring the resin into, you know, your cups, because it is a strong smell. So once you start stirring it, you know, the fumes will start to release a little bit more as well. And this is part A, and I'm just pouring it right on top. And if you can see, it just kind of goes straight down the middle. And I meant to tell you guys too, before you start, obviously you're gonna want to have your timer ready. So the instructions say to mix it up to 3 minutes. For me, I mix it up to, I'd say 5 minutes, depending on how many pours I'm doing and, you know, what my temperature is in the room. And I forgot to say that too. So you want to make sure that your room is about 75 degrees. And again, it depends on your actual place that you're living and then just your climate again. And I'm just stirring it from the bottom. So you're going to want to start at the bottom and just mix, you know, mix the sides as well. I stir in one direction. It's just easier for me. And I like to stir it with this popsicle stick. I know a lot of people will use silicone stirs, which is better, which a lot of times I just grab the first thing I have. But yeah, silicone is great too because the resin just peels right off. So we're just gonna stir, keep stirring, and you're gonna wanna scrape the sides too. You see how I'm scraping the sides to where we're getting all of it incorporated together. And you're gonna wanna make sure you also feel the bottom of this, because if you're stirring like this and you're not feeling where the direction and the movement you're stirring it, then it's not going to be stirred properly, and that way you're going to get an uneven cure, or your pigments will not mix properly either. So super important. You guys, you know what? I totally forgot to tell you, which you guys can already see what I'm doing. I'm actually wearing gloves. So you want to make sure you have protection for your hands first and foremost. It's funny because artists will say, how do you have your nails like that? Well, I have my nails this way because when I start to prep my pieces, so for example, my cell phones or anything that has to do with tape, I want to make sure I can really get a secure fit in each corner, which is so funny, but it just works for me. And who doesn't like pretty nails at times? But gosh, you should see them now. They look horrible. So again, just stirring. It's funny because I always like to stir it really fast and really hard just because, you know, I probably pour up to 24 ounces at a time. So you really want to use your elbow grease with that as well. At least you'll get some muscles out of it. It's always fun. So don't be alarmed when you say, oh my gosh, look at all those bubbles. That's fine. I mean, people will stir it until the bubbles are gone, which is impossible. So what happens is once we pour these into the cups, obviously you're still going to have the bubbles, but once you put heat to the resin, the bubbles dissipate, and you'll notice that in just a few. Okay, so I've been stirring it for about 2 minutes, so I have about 2 minutes more. So tell me where you guys are from. I want to know what parts of the world you're from, how you guys started resin art, or what inspires you, who inspires you, what artists inspire you, and also what do you guys want to see on my next video, because a lot of times I will do ocean pours, but I love to do like different colors where you incorporate the golds and the metallics. For Christmas I did a lot of metallic pours, which were so much fun. But I think the ocean pours are the hardest. So, you know, when I started out, I just kind of went into it with not really knowing how to do the ocean pours. But I practiced and practiced and practiced. And that's kind of what led me to perfecting it the way I do. I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but my goodness, I feel like, you know, knowing how much pigment to use and how much to put in makes a huge difference. And also what products you're using. I'll leave a link in the description for Eye Candy Pigments. They are a huge supporter of mine. I am an ambassador for them, so there's a coupon code that I can share with you as well, because, you know, it's expensive starting out. You have a lot of supplies you have to get, and they're endless. It's like, but the good thing about, you know, plastics and things like this, you can always reuse it. And I'll show you how you can do that. You might have noticed I didn't prep this here, and the reason why, sometimes tape does not adhere to certain woods. No matter how much you sand them, no matter, you know, what type of laminate is on it, it just is a headache. So I don't actually prep my bamboo boards. Actually, none of them I prep. And I'll show you after this piece is done, we'll kind of go through what the next step is. How to sand it, how to take the drips off first, then you sand it. I don't think you guys want to see packaging. It's kind of boring, but you can. There's nothing wrong with that. So again, just going through, making sure you feel the bottom of the cup, because you want to make sure that popsicle stick or whatever stirring utensil you're using hits that bottom. And then you're also going to want to scrape the sides every now and then. It's so funny because I'm used to listening to music and I go so quickly around my table. Do you guys listen to music, or what do you guys do when you're pouring? Or are you too focused on what you're doing? I want to know what you guys like. Okay, so I've been stirring now for almost, I don't know, I guess 4 minutes. I actually use my cell phone, which is bad to time myself. And you can feel the temperature of the cup. So if it's starting to heat up, you're like, oh, it's time to go. But I do suggest getting like a stopwatch. You can get those off of Amazon. I bought a couple, but I didn't like them. I feel like I had to really press into them and I didn't have time to really deal with it. So my cell phone kind of works the best. Okay, so I think it looks pretty good. When you actually are done pouring it, it looks a little cloudy. That's normal. That's okay. just because of this art resin that we're using. That's pretty normal. And again, don't be alarmed if your resin of choice has a bunch of bubbles, because we are going to pop all of them once we put heat to it. Sorry, I'm just putting a little bit more elbow grease. You can't see what I'm doing. I'm doing exactly the same thing I was before. All right, so we're gonna get our cups ready. I'll wait to do the white in just a second. All right, again, scrape the sides really good. And make sure you're doing this in a ventilated room, please, guys. I know people are probably gonna say, well, I can't open my window. That's fine, but just make sure you're doing this with the door open. Make sure if there's any type of allergies that your family has, to have them not be near, because it can be dangerous. All right, so I hope you guys can see that. So I'm just gonna pour. It's probably too much, but that's okay. There you go. Let me pour all of these first, and then, oops, I got a drip there. That's okay, because we have that alcohol, remember? And always have something, you know, on the side, like whether it be a coaster or like a mold you kind of want to play with, because you're gonna always have more resin left over. And I get so angry because I think what happens with me, I use more white than anything else, and I waste it more than anything else. All right, so I'm not gonna put as much white, obviously, because we're not using as much pigment for the white. Okay, so I have some left over, but what I'm gonna do is put that into a cup, because I'm going to use it for something else after we're done here. And you want to take it out of the cup, because what happens if you leave it in while it's still trying to heat up, I mean, well, it will heat up is what I'm trying to say. You want to take it out of what you started in ASAP. And what I'm going to do is get my other popsicle stick I was using. And also the parchment paper is great to kind of place your stick down. So if you need to use it again, that way it's not sticking to every single thing, which is good. And you can reuse your popsicle stick as well. So try to be as mindful as possible with your supplies. Of course, in the environment, you want to always do that too. And this is really gooey. Obviously you can see that, but it's because it's a thicker resin, but it literally stays exactly where it needs to stay. So say I want to start the wave at a certain angle or a certain area, it stays there. Okay, let me grab another cup for the clear. So I'm just going to add from this cup just a little bit of clear, and that's going to be our first actual starting point, and you'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. Okay, so a lot of people ask me, how much white do I use for the pour? So basically, after you've stirred it, and now it's sat for a little bit, so I'm going to want to stir it again, because you don't know if the oils have dissipated down to the bottom or where they've gone. So we're going to use probably about a dime size. See that? And we're just going to put it into the white. And I always stir the white first. And the reason being, because you want to let it sit just a little bit. Some artists let it sit for about 15 minutes, which I don't have time to let it sit that long, but it actually, I will say, once it starts to tack up a little bit, it does stay where you want it to stay. So you can, it's really, if you want to play with it. I don't do that because I just don't. I mean, that's just my way of pouring my waves. I don't let it sit. But think about it. If you pour your white first, you're actually letting it sit for about 5 minutes, because once you start to pour and you're ready to go, it's about 7 minutes to 10 minutes later in most cases. So you see that? It's very runny right now, which is fine. All right, so now we're gonna do the Okinawa blue. Now, with mica pigments, you will get some little particles on the side of the cup. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if you can see it, but you're gonna wanna stir it pretty strongly. Obviously not so strong you break your cup, but you just want it mixed well, because you will sometimes get those little bits in your resin and you're like, oh, this is annoying. But you can really fix it by putting in the pigment first. Then you're gonna pour the resin on top and let it kind of fuse together at the bottom there. And then that's when you start to stir it nicely like this. And I like to bring up the pigment into the resin, if you can see. And now it's perfect. So you don't have any of those little, I call them lint, mica lints. There you go. So that's the Okinawa blue. Gosh, gorgeous colors. I love, 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 love. Okay, so see what I'm talking about, how it's at the bottom? So I kind of bring it to the top. You see those little striations in it? You don't want that. So you want to stir it as much as you can, scraping the sides too, getting a nice mixture, almost like cake. You know when you mix a cake and then you have all those little particles in it, you want it mixed thoroughly. At least you'll get some muscles out of it. Skipped me for some reason, but that's okay. Gosh, this is a beautiful color too. Look at that. This is the Persian purple, and I'll list everything in the description box below. Again, over safety, we're gonna do your mask. Make sure your gloves are good. You can double glove if you want to. I don't do that all the time unless I'm doing a tray, because I might need to pick the tray up. I like to turn on my heat gun a little bit just to get the dust out of the nozzle from your last pour or from overnight. You're also gonna wanna make sure you have butane lighter in your torch before you start, because that's the worst, having that not lighting. It's happened many times to me. Okay, I'm just stirring the clear, just looking at the consistency of it to see. Okay, let's get started. So now we're gonna do the first layer. So this is your clear, and I always do it, a lot of times people will like kind of pour it with the cup, but I like to use my actual popsicle stick. The reason I do that is because I have more control. So for example, you see, I just kind of, it's almost like you're painting in a way, but you're not. It's just you have more control over where the resin flows. Now understand if, you know, your resin's about to tack up and you're like, oh, I don't have a choice, just pour it out. Yes, you can do that. So basically here, all I'm doing is kind of making my shoreline. So if you notice, I'm using quite a bit of clear because I want the wave part of it. So the frothy, beautiful transition, almost like if you look at a wave and you see it come to shore and then it goes back out, it leaves that little bubble-like effect. And that's why I do more clear in the beginning. So this is where a lot of artists will ask, you know, what do I do with the white? And then the clear. So what steps? Like, do I go from white to clear or clear to white? No, you're gonna always start with the clear first. So that can start your palette. And as you see what I'm doing here, since I want it to go over the sides, I put a little bit more clear only because, you know, wood is very porous and sometimes it doesn't want to take your actual resin at times. I've had issues where it starts to bubble up like right here. It's just because there's air inside the wood. Has nothing really to do with you. It's just the way it was made. Okay, so stir, stir, stir. You see it's still running, which is good. So that means you still have quite a bit of working time, which is great. So again, I do the same thing. So I bring it right to that clear area and I just kind of blend it as I go a little bit because you don't want such a harsh line. And if you do end up with a harsh line, that is okay, because the next layer tomorrow that we're gonna do, I'm gonna show you how to break it up. And that's a really important part. Once you pour your first layer and then you start to do your second or third, is breaking up of the color transition. A lot of times people will say, you know, it doesn't flow the same, or it doesn't give you that nice, you know, flow to where the colors are separated. It just looks like one huge block. And I will show you guys how to do that tomorrow. Okay, again, same thing. Make sure you know, you got all the sides and the mica is completely saturated with the resin. I was gonna say completely gone. So you can see there's no type of little bits on the side of the cup. Okay, so now we're just, it's almost, again, it's like you're painting. You can definitely, you know, paint your board first or your substrate, whatever you choose. I don't do that only because I can't paint, to be honest with you guys. It's not a pretty picture, but I can definitely, you know, blend these together, which is fine. Because see, now if you're blending the two, as you can see here, it's just giving that nice transition in the beginning to where it's not just fully blue and then fully light blue. So you just, you know, think of it like painting. So I guess I can paint a little bit, I don't know. Okay, I like to go all the way to the edge, and then I'll take my stick and just kind of base the side. That's kind of what I say, base the side. And the reason you want to do that is because you want to make sure it flows over, you know, the edge there. All right, and it needs something to stick to. So basically, if you didn't do this, you can still go back, you know, after you're done with your wave, no problem, and just kind of do the same thing. But I just want it to overflow nicely. So just make sure the sides are totally, you know, adhered with resin on the side there. And now, so your white, it's still a little, you know, a little runny, but it's okay. That's okay. So we're gonna stir that again. And then how I'm gonna start right here on the side. So in a lot of my ocean pours, I like for the wave to go over the side so you can kind of see the transition of the 3D layers. Not sure how many layers I'm gonna do on this piece, but we'll see. So you're gonna start over the side and then just go right on top of the white. Now you will lose a little bit more white. As you can see how I started, it's thicker here and it's thinner on this side. Well, we're gonna do the same exact thing on this side too, because we wanna make sure we got, you know, the white over the side on both sides of the board. And then I kind of transition out and I do these, I call them angel wings. And I'll show you why I call, well, obviously they're angel wings because they're smaller, but it gives just a nice kind of transition to blowing out that white all together. And you know, there's really no set way to do it, but just be gentle with it, because white is very opaque, and if you put too much in one area too, it can kind of roll, and sometimes that rolling wave is really pretty, and I'll show you how to fix that too. It's very easy. You can always, you know, do another layer over it and start that second wave kind of right where you did before. And I'll just kind of inspect it a little bit too. If I need to put a little bit more white, that's okay, because I'm going to take it back out. You see how I did that? Anywhere I see gaps, I'll go right back into it. And again, it's kind of like painting. All right, so now I'm going to torch it just lightly, just so it has a nice flow when we blow it out with the actual heat gun. And if you can tell, all the bubbles are starting to pop on its own, which is what we want it to do. All right. Again, get your heat gun. And I use this on a medium setting. What's great about this heat gun, you can do it as hot as you want or, you know, not as hot. But I suggest starting it on medium. And just kind of heat up that shoreline again. And I like to start in the middle. So I'll start right here. And very lightly start pushing it back out. Now, can you see where I did all these little angel waves? It looks like it's a wave breaking into another wave if you're looking down into it. So that's why I kind of do the smaller stringy angel waves, if you will. All right. And if you notice that when I push the edge over. I don't want that big block of white, so I'll push it a little harder, which is fine if you like it that way. I just like it to have that nice kind of break right here on the end. And keep in mind your body movement. So be comfortable, kind of know which way you're going, because you don't want to go straight into it. You kind of want to get on top of it, but not too close either. Because I've done that numerous times where I had to go back and re-blow it out, which I'm about to do now. So what's happening is we blew it out, right? But now it's starting to kind of pull back, which is perfectly fine. I want it to do that because now you can kind of see where you want to blow it out one more time. Because right here, you can still see where it's supposed to be sand. But I want it to kind of push out just a tad bit. But I like where this shoreline is, and I like how the effects are going to kind of pop through. So let's blow it out one more time. I normally just kind of do this quickly to this end, and then I'll do it again. So I just wanted you to kind of understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing that. Okay, so now do you see where it looks like it's another wave within this wave? So this is already pushed back. Now we're going to torch it. Okay, so when I was torching it vigorously, you don't want to get too close to it because you don't want to burn it, right? But as you can see, when I was torching it, you could see those little bubbles start to kind of transform and make its own frothy wave, which is really amazing. And that's why, you know, Eye Candy Pigments is fantastic because it allows that nice smooth transition. And then once you use the white, it just, I mean, it's almost magical. I think that's what I can say. So what I'm gonna do now is go on the side of the board, on the back, and I just wanna make sure it's covered. A lot of times I'll do this right before the resin is about to tack up because it will be a little thicker, and so that way it will stick to the back of the board. And the reason I do this is because the next layer that we're gonna do is gonna be a lot more transparent. So again, this is going to be your base layer, to where you get your colors down, and you know how light you want to go the next layer or how heavy you want to go. And the next layer is definitely going to be a little bit of just a tad bit of the Eye Candy Pigments. And then we're also going to use alcohol inks, which is going to be a lot of fun because, you know, you can see exactly what type of transformation you'll get with those. And if I have time, which a lot of times I don't, I'll go under the board, you know, be careful not to get the white part, and scrape it like this, because that way you won't have as much drippage, you know, to take off with when you sand it and whatnot. But that's okay if you don't, because it's really simple. You know, you put a little bit of elbow grease again, let it sit there for a minute, and as it's sitting, you're gonna see the transition of the bubbles to pop up. But the only way you're gonna get that is if you torch it, and you have to torch it pretty close and fast. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's fast. You're gonna wanna move. So far I like that. I like the way, you know, the shoreline hits here and it looks like it was pulled back and it came back again. So I hope you guys enjoyed this part of the tutorial. We'll definitely come back tomorrow and see what it looks like. That is it for layer 1. We will start layer 2 on the next video. I hope you guys learned something so far, so stay tuned for the next video. We'll see you next time.